Van Horn, Texas, exists in a state of suspended animation. It is a town defined not by what it contains, but by the vast, crushing emptiness that surrounds it. To the east, the Chihuahuan Desert stretches out in a flat, monotonous beige that eventually bleeds into the humidity of the hill country, hundreds of miles away. To the west, the mountains rise up like broken teeth, jagged and purple against a sky that is always too bright, too wide, and too indifferent. The town itself is a collection of low-slung buildings clustered around the lifeline of Interstate 10, a circulatory system of asphalt that pumps trucks and travelers through the desert artery. I did not plan to stop there. Van Horn was meant to be a blur in my peripheral vision, a waypoint marker on a GPS screen while I drove toward a new life in El Paso. I was running away, though I told myself I was relocating. A divorce that had been as sterile and sharp as a scalpel cut had left me with half a bank account, a box of legal documents, and a rental truck filled with the disjointed artifacts of a decade-long marriage. The transmission of the rental truck died at mile marker 138. It didn't explode. It didn't smoke. It simply gave up. The engine revved into a high, whining scream, and the forward momentum bled away, leaving me coasting onto the gravel shoulder while 18-wheelers thundered past, shaking the cab with their wake. The tow truck driver was a man named Silas who spoke in a slow, rhythmic drawl that seemed to match the heat. He towed the truck to a garage on the edge of town, a place that smelled of old oil and dry rot. The diagnosis was grim. The transmission was shredded. The parts were on backorder. It would take 2 weeks, maybe 3. The rental company was apologetic but bureaucratic. They could send a replacement truck in 5 days. Until then, I was stranded. I checked into the El Capitan Hotel, not the nice historic one, but the budget motel annex around the back where the carpet smelled of lemon cleaner and stale cigarettes. For 2 days, I sat in the room, watching dust motes dance in the shafts of light that pierced the heavy curtains. I felt the weight of my possessions sitting in the broken truck at the garage. Everything I owned. My clothes, my books, the furniture I had fought to keep, the kitchenware that felt heavy with memories of dinners eaten in silence. The anxiety of having my life exposed in a parking lot gnawed at me. I couldn't leave it there. It felt vulnerable. It felt like I was leaving a wound open to the air. I needed to secure it. I needed a place to put the baggage, both literal and metaphorical, until I could figure out how to move forward. I found the storage facility on a Tuesday afternoon. I saw the billboard first, faded by the sun, featuring a smiling cartoon padlock and the words, I-10 Secure Self-Storage, space for your life. It was located 3 miles east of the town proper, down a service road that seemed to lead nowhere. The pavement of the service road was cracked, weeds growing through the fissures like stubborn hairs. The facility itself was a fortress of corrugated metal. It sat on a flat plain of crushed white gravel that reflected the sun with blinding intensity. A high chain-link fence surrounded the perimeter, topped with coils of razor wire that looked brand new, glinting silver and sharp. There was no office, no human being to greet me, just a heavy, sliding iron gate and a kiosk standing on a concrete island like a lonely sentry. I pulled the rental car, a compact sedan provided by the insurance, up to the kiosk. The heat outside was 104 degrees. When I rolled down the window, the air felt like the breath of a furnace. It sucked the moisture from my eyes instantly. The kiosk screen was vivid, high definition, contrasting strangely with the dusty, abandoned aesthetic of the surrounding landscape. It welcomed me with a smooth, sans serif font. Welcome to SecureKeep. Touch to begin. I went through the motions. I selected a 10x20 unit, climate controlled. I didn't want my books to warp or my electronics to melt. The price was surprisingly low, $80 a month. In Houston, a unit this size would have been triple that. The machine asked for my details: name, date of birth, social security number. It felt invasive, but I was tired and hot and I just wanted to be done. Then came the biometric scan. Place right thumb on sensor. I pressed my thumb against the glass. A beam of green light swept across my skin. It felt warm, a focused heat that lingered for a second too long. Identity verified. Allocating unit. Unit B412 assigned. A contract appeared on the screen, pages and pages of dense legal text. I scrolled through it quickly, my eyes glazing over the clauses about liability, hazardous materials, and late fees. I hit "I agree" at the bottom without reading a single sentence. A receipt printed out on thermal paper, along with a unique access code, 88,421. The iron gate began to roll back. It was heavy, solid steel, and the motor that drove it sounded deep and powerful, a low industrial groan that vibrated in the chassis of my car. I drove through, and the gate closed behind me immediately. The silence inside the perimeter was absolute. The sound of the highway, which had been a constant roar just moments ago, was muted, as if the air inside the fence was thicker, dampening the noise. The facility was laid out in a strict grid. Long, low buildings with beige metal walls and numbered corners. Building A, Building B, Building C. The asphalt between the buildings was black and pristine, unmarked by tire tracks or oil stains. It looked like it had been poured yesterday. I drove slowly, looking for Building B. The facility was larger than it looked from the road. The rows of buildings seemed to extend further back than the geometry of the lot should have allowed, but I dismissed it as a trick of the flat desert perspective. Heat shimmer distorted the air, making the far ends of the corridors wobble like water. I found Building B. It was identical to Building A, a long rectangular block with no windows. The entrance to the climate-controlled section was a single glass door located in the center of the structure. I parked the rental car and walked to the keypad. I punched in my code. The lock clicked with a heavy, magnetic thud. I pulled the door open and stepped inside. The transition was violent. Outside, the world was a blast furnace of white light and dry heat. Inside, it was a tomb. The air was frigid, set to a constant 65 degrees. It smelled of ozone, concrete dust, and something else, something faint and sweet, like dried flowers or old perfume. The hallway stretched out to the left and right, illuminated by overhead fluorescent tubes that flickered with a subconscious rhythm. The floor was polished concrete, gray and reflective, mirroring the lights above so that it felt like I was walking on a tunnel of light. I walked down the left corridor, scanning the numbers. B400, B402, B404. The doors were painted a uniform, industrial orange. They were clean. No scratches, no dents, no dust. It felt less like a storage facility and more like a laboratory or a data center. I found B412. It was halfway down the hall. I cut the plastic wrap on the padlock I had bought from the kiosk vending machine, a heavy, disc-shaped lock that felt reassuringly solid. I rolled up the orange door. The unit was empty, just a concrete box. The walls were corrugated metal painted white. The ceiling was high, maybe 12 feet, lost in shadows above the reach of the hallway light. I stood there for a moment, looking at the empty space. It was a blank slate, a void waiting to be filled with the wreckage of my life. The move took 3 days. I had to shuttle back and forth between the garage and the storage unit, loading the sedan with as many boxes as it would hold, driving the 3 miles, unloading and going back. It was grueling, repetitive work. During those 3 days, I never saw another person at the facility. I saw evidence of them, or so I thought. On the second day, I found a half-empty water bottle sitting on the bumper of the loading dock. The water was still cold, sweating condensation onto the metal. I looked around, expecting to see a mover or a tenant, but the lot was empty. When I came back out with the next load 5 minutes later, the bottle was gone. The ring of water it had left on the bumper had already evaporated in the heat. On the third day, I was moving the heavier items. I had borrowed a dolly from the garage. I was struggling with a heavy oak dresser, the one my ex-wife had insisted we buy for the guest room we never used. I wheeled it down the hallway of Building B, the rubber wheels squeaking on the polished concrete. Squeak, squeak, a squeak. I stopped to adjust my grip. Squeak. The sound echoed once more, a second after I had stopped moving. I froze. I looked down the long hallway. The lights hummed. The orange doors stood silent. Hello, I called out. My voice didn't echo. It sounded flat, deadened. The acoustics of the hallway were strange. The squeak had echoed, but my voice didn't. I shook my head, blaming the exhaustion and the dehydration. I pushed the dresser into Unit B412 and shoved it against the back wall. By the evening of the third day, the unit was full. My life was stacked in cardboard towers. The books, the clothes, the kitchen appliances, the framed prints, the disassembled bed frame. It was all there, categorized and compressed into 200 square feet. I stood at the threshold, looking at the wall of boxes. There was a sense of finality to it. I was closing a chapter, sealing it behind a metal door. I felt a wave of profound sadness, followed by a hollow relief. I pulled the orange door down. The spring mechanism was well-oiled. It slid down smoothly. I threaded the padlock through the latch and snapped it shut. I tugged on it once to be sure. It held. I walked away. I didn't look back. The next week was a blur of motel inertia. I spent my days in the air-conditioned room, applying for jobs on a laptop that was slowly overheating. I called the garage every morning at 9:00 a.m. Parts ain't here yet, buddy, Silas would say. Supply chain issues, you know how it is. I knew how it is. I started to develop a routine: coffee at the gas station, a walk around the dusty town square, lunch at the diner, afternoon in the motel room, dinner at the taco truck, sleep. It was a limbo existence. I was waiting for permission to resume my life. On the 8th day, I realized I needed my birth certificate. I had packed it in one of the important docs boxes. I needed it for a background check for a potential job in Albuquerque. I drove out to the facility in the late afternoon. The sun was beginning to dip, casting long, stretched shadows across the desert floor. The mountains looked two-dimensional, like a painted backdrop. I punched in the code, 88,421. The gate rolled back. I drove to Building B. The facility felt different in the late afternoon light. The beige metal walls took on a reddish hue, like dried blood. The silence was heavier. I entered the climate-controlled hallway. The cold hit me, raising gooseflesh on my arms. I walked down the hall toward B412. I walked past B400, B402, B404. I was counting the steps unconsciously. I knew exactly where my unit was. It was the 6th door on the left. I stopped at the 6th door. The number on the metal was B410. I frowned. I looked at the next door, B414. I stepped back. I looked at the gap between them. It was a solid wall of corrugated metal. There was no door. I felt a sudden, sharp spike of disorientation. Had I misremembered the number? Was I in the wrong aisle? I pulled the receipt from my wallet, Unit B412. I looked at the padlock on B410. It wasn't mine. It was a cheap brass master lock. I looked at the padlock on B414. It was a combination lock. I walked back to the entrance of the hallway. I checked the sign, Building B. I walked down the hallway again, slower this time. I checked the right side of the hall, B401, B403, B405. I went all the way to the end of the corridor. It ended in a blank white wall with a fire extinguisher mounted in the center. I turned around and walked back. And there it was. Unit B412. It was between B410 and B414, exactly where it should have been. My round disc padlock was on the latch. I stared at it, my heart hammering a strange, uneven rhythm against my ribs. I had just walked past this spot. I had stared at the wall. There had been no door. "Get a grip, David," I whispered. It was the light. The fluorescent tubes were flickering. It was a trick of the eye, a blind spot. I had been distracted. I had simply missed it. But the rational part of my brain, the part that dealt with logistics and spreadsheets, knew that you don't just miss a 10-foot wide bright orange metal door. I opened the lock. My hands were shaking slightly. I rolled up the door. My boxes were there. Everything was exactly as I had left it. The dresser against the back wall. The tower of book boxes near the front. I breathed out a long, shaky exhale. I was losing it. The stress of the divorce, the heat, the isolation, it was making me crack. I found the box with the documents. I dug through it, found the birth certificate, and slid it into a folder. I put the box back. I didn't want to stay. The air in the unit felt stagnant, heavy. It didn't feel like fresh, air-conditioned air. It felt recycled, old, as if it had been breathed by 1,000 people before me. I pulled the door down and locked it. As I walked back toward the exit, I heard a sound behind me. It was the sound of a box sliding. SecureKeep. It was the heavy, grinding sound of cardboard moving against concrete. I stopped. I turned around. The hallway was empty. The long row of orange doors stood silent. The sound had come from inside one of the units. I stood there listening. The hum of the lights was the only sound. Then I heard it again. Thumping. It sounded like a heavy book falling flat onto the floor. It came from Unit B412. My unit. I stared at the door I had just locked. I was the only one with a key. There was no one inside. I had just been in there. It was packed tight. There was no room for a person to hide, even if they wanted to. Rats, it had to be rats, or the stack of boxes had settled. Gravity, physics. But the scrape, that was a horizontal movement. Gravity pulls things down, not across. I took a step toward the unit. I put my hand on the padlock. Do I open it? Do I check? If I opened it and saw a box had fallen, I would feel better. If I opened it and saw nothing had moved, that would be worse. And if I opened it and saw something else? I let go of the lock. I turned and walked quickly to the exit. I didn't run, but I walked with a stiff, focused urgency. I got into my car and drove out of the gate. I didn't go back for 2 weeks. The parts for the truck arrived. Silas fixed the transmission. I had the truck back. I was ready to load up and leave for El Paso. I was ready to put Van Horn in the rearview mirror forever. It was a Thursday. I woke up with a headache, a dull pressure behind my eyes. I checked out of the motel. I drove the truck to the storage facility. The plan was simple: load the truck, return the key, drive. I punched in the code, 88,421. The gate didn't move. The screen flashed red, access denied. I tried again, 88,421. Access denied, please contact administration. I stared at the screen. I cursed. The bill. It must have been the bill. I had set up autopay, but maybe the card had been declined. I had been moving money around trying to balance the accounts. I saw a button on the kiosk labeled Help/Support. I pressed it. A speaker crackled, static hissed, followed by a voice. It was smooth, synthetic, perfectly modulated. Welcome to SecureKeep. How may we facilitate your storage needs today? My code isn't working, I said. I'm trying to get in to move my stuff out. One moment while I access your file. Please state your name and unit number. David Miller, Unit B412. There was a pause. The static hissed, sounding like rain on a tin roof. Mr. Miller, the voice said, we show that your lease is currently under review for structural noncompliance. What does that mean? It means there is a discrepancy between the registered volume of your unit and the actual displacement. We need to verify the dimensions before access can be granted. I have a truck waiting, I said, my voice rising. I just want to take my stuff and leave. I'm canceling the lease. Lease termination requires a physical inspection of the unit to ensure no structural integration has occurred. Structural integration, it's a box of cardboard. Look, just open the gate. I can grant a temporary one-time access pass for inspection purposes, the voice said. Please hold. A new code flashed on the screen, 99,901. Thank you for choosing SecureKeep. Remember, stability is our priority. The connection cut. The gate rolled open. I drove through. I was angry now. The fear from 2 weeks ago had been replaced by the hot, prickly irritation of dealing with incompetence. I drove fast, kicking up dust. I parked at Building B. I stormed inside. The hallway was different. The lights were dimmer. Several of the tubes were burned out, leaving long patches of shadow. The air was colder, biting. I could see my breath puffing out in white clouds. I walked to B412. The door was there, but something was wrong with it. The paint was peeling. Great strips of orange paint were curling off, revealing rusted metal underneath. And the number B412 wasn't stenciled on anymore. It was scratched into the metal. Crude, jagged lines, as if carved with a screwdriver or a fingernail. B412. I looked at the neighboring doors. B410 and B414 were pristine, perfect paint, perfect stencils. My lock was still there. I unlocked it. I threw the door up with a violent clang. I stopped. The unit was not how I left it. The boxes were there, but they had been rearranged. I had stacked them in rows, creating a small aisle down the middle so I could access the back. Now the boxes were stacked in a solid wall at the very front of the unit, floor to ceiling, blocking the view of the rest of the space. It was a barricade. I grabbed the top box, a box of kitchen supplies, and pulled it down. I threw it behind me into the hallway. I grabbed the next one, books. I pulled it down. I was tearing down the wall of boxes, fueled by adrenaline and anger. Who had been in here? Who touched my things? I cleared a gap. I shone the flashlight from my phone into the space behind the wall of boxes. The unit was deeper. It had been 20 feet deep. I knew that. I had measured it. Now, the beam of my flashlight faded into darkness before it hit the back wall. I stepped through the gap in the boxes. "Hello," I whispered. The echo came back, but it took too long. "Hello, hello, hello." I took a few steps forward. The floor was still concrete. The walls were still corrugated metal, but the ceiling, I looked up. I couldn't see the ceiling. The beam of light went up and hit nothing but hazy darkness. I walked further. I passed my dresser. It was sitting alone in the middle of the vast concrete floor, like a piece of furniture in a dollhouse. I kept walking. I should have hit the back wall by now. I saw something on the floor ahead. It was another dresser. I walked up to it. It was identical to mine. Same oak finish, same brass handles. I looked to the left. Another dresser. I looked to the right. Rows of them. Hundreds of oak dressers, lined up in perfect military formation, stretching out into the darkness. I spun around to run back to the door. The wall of boxes was gone. The door was gone. I was standing in a warehouse the size of a city. The only light was the weak beam of my phone. And then the lights came on. Not the fluorescent tubes of the hallway. These were massive, industrial arc lights suspended miles above in the gloom. They flickered to life with a deafening thrum click, bathing the space in a sickly, sodium yellow wash. I could see for miles. It was an ocean of storage. Endless aisles of stacked boxes, furniture, old cars, piles of clothes, mountains of televisions. And in the distance, I saw the corridors. They weren't hallways. They were canyons. Walls of orange doors stacked 100 high, rising like skyscrapers, creating a labyrinth of steel and rust. I turned back to where I thought the entrance was. There was just a single freestanding door frame, my orange door B412. It was closed. I ran to it. I pounded on the metal. Open the goddamn door. I grabbed the handle at the bottom. I pulled. It slid up easily. I looked through the opening. I wasn't looking back into the hallway of Building B. I was looking into a living room. It was a small, cozy room with beige carpet and floral wallpaper. There was a TV playing a sitcom from the 1990s. There was a smell of pot roast cooking. Sitting in a recliner was a man. He had his back to me. "Excuse me," I yelled. "Help me." The man turned around slowly. He had my face. Not my face as it was now. My face from 10 years ago. Younger, no gray in the beard, happier. He looked at me with mild confusion. "Can I help you?" he asked. His voice was my voice. I'm locked in," I stammered. "No," the other me said. He smiled, and it was a terrible, pitying smile. "You're not locked in, you're stored." He raised a remote control and pointed it at me. "Mute," he said. He pressed a button. The silence that hit me was absolute. I screamed, but no sound came out. I could feel my vocal cords vibrating. I could feel the air rushing from my lungs, but the world was dead silent. The other me turned back to the TV. I tried to step through the doorframe into the living room. I hit an invisible barrier. It felt like cold, thick glass. I hammered on it. The other me didn't look back. The orange door began to roll down. I threw myself under it, trying to jam it with my body, but the pressure was immense. It wasn't just a spring-loaded door anymore. It pushed down with the weight of a hydraulic press. It forced me back. I scrambled backward. The door slammed shut, clang. The sound returned with the impact. The echo rolled through the infinite warehouse like thunder. I was alone in the yellow light. My phone buzzed. 10% battery remaining. And a notification. Email, lease update zone transfer. Sender SecureKeep admin. Transfer to deep storage complete. Your items have been integrated. Please familiarize yourself with the local geography. Navigational assistance is not provided. I looked around. The aisles of dressers stretched out to the horizon. To my left, a mountain of washing machines. To my right, a forest of floor lamps. I had to move. I had to find a wall. If I found a wall, I could find a door. I started walking. I walked past the dressers. I walked past the lamps. I came to a section that was just mirrors. Thousands of mirrors of all shapes and sizes, leaning against each other, stacked in piles. I tried not to look at my reflection, but as I passed a large, ornate vanity mirror, I caught a glimpse. I wasn't alone in the reflection. Standing just behind my left shoulder, deep in the glass, was a figure, tall, thin, wearing a blue mechanic's uniform. I spun around. There was no one there. I looked back at the mirror. The figure was closer. I started to run. I ran through the aisles of the lost and the stored. I ran until my lungs burned and my legs felt like lead. I found a hallway, a real hallway, like the one in Building B. It was cut into the side of a mountain of cardboard boxes. I ran into it. The familiar hum of the fluorescent lights was a comfort, even though they flickered with a manic intensity. The doors here were different. They weren't numbered B412 or B414. They were labeled with dates. October 14, 1988. July 4, 1999. September 11, 2001. I slowed down. I walked past a door labeled June 12, 2015. That was the day I got married. I stopped. The door was slightly ajar. I heard music coming from inside. It was our song, the song we danced to. I reached out and pushed the door open. It wasn't a storage unit inside. It was the hotel ballroom. I saw the guests. I saw the cake. I saw myself spinning her around. But they were frozen, like a wax museum display. No one was moving. The music was playing on a loop, skipping slightly on the chorus. Love you for I, love you for I, love you for I. I saw myself. The wax figure of me was smiling, but its eyes were wide, terrified, staring directly at the door where I stood. I backed away. I pulled the door shut. I kept walking. The hallway began to twist. It spiraled downward. The concrete floor turned to metal grating. I could see down through the grate. Levels, endless levels below me. Hallways crossing over hallways. A vast, subterranean hive of storage. I saw movement on the level below. Someone was walking. Hey, I yelled, hey, up here. The figure stopped. It looked up. It was wearing a blue uniform. Earl, I shouted. I didn't know why I called that name. I had never met an Earl, but the name felt right. It felt like the name written on the tag. The man looked at me. His face was too far away to see clearly, but I felt his gaze. It was heavy. You're out of bounds, son, he called up. His voice drifted up through the grating, dry and scratchy. How do I get out? You don't get out of the archive, he said. You just get refiled. I'm not a file, I'm a person. That's a temporary distinction, he said. He started walking again. Wait. I ran to a stairwell. I scrambled down the metal steps. I had to catch him. He was staff. He had keys. I reached the lower level. I ran to where I had seen him. He was gone. But there was a door there, a large double steel door. Label, administration/lease renewal. I grabbed the handles. They were cold, freezing cold. I pulled the doors open. I expected an office, a desk, a computer. I stepped into a desert. It was night. The sky was filled with stars, but they were wrong. They were too bright, and they were arranged in grid patterns. I was standing on the white gravel of the facility lot. I saw the gate in the distance. I laughed, a choked, hysterical sob. I was out. I ran toward the gate. The gravel crunched under my feet. I ran and ran. But the gate didn't get any closer. I stopped. I looked back. The building I had come from was gone. I was standing in the middle of an infinite plain of white gravel. And then I saw them. The units, rising out of the ground like monoliths. Black stone towers shaped like storage lockers, hundreds of feet high. They were surrounding me. My phone buzzed. 1% battery. Email final notice. Sender SecureKeep admin. We have noticed you are attempting to vacate the premises without a checkout code. This is a violation of the Infinite Lease. Penalty integration. The phone died. The ground began to shake. One of the black towers in front of me began to open, a massive stone slab sliding upward. Inside there was a light, a warm yellow light. And a bed, my bed. And a nightstand and a lamp. It looked so comfortable. I was so tired. I had been running for, how long? Days, years. The cold of the desert night was biting into my bones. The warmth from the unit beckoned. I walked toward it. I knew it was a trap. I knew it was the end. But the logic of the facility had overwritten the logic of the world. To be stored is to be safe. To be stored is to be kept. I stepped into the unit. The stone door began to slide down. I sat on the bed. I took off my shoes. I looked at the wall. There was a calendar. Month forever. Year now. The door shut. The darkness was total. Then the hum began. It was the sound of the universe holding its breath. I closed my eyes. I am Unit B412, and I am occupied.